Good morning, students. Today we will start a new short story The Singing Lesson, written by Catherine Mansfield Murray. Before I start the short story, line to line explanation, we need to know a little bit about Catherine Mansfield Murray. So, Catherine Mansfield Murray is basically considered as the pioneer of modern short stories, and he was born in 1888 and died in 1923. This particular short story, The Singing Lesson, is taken from the collection The Garden Party and Other Stories, and it was first published in 1922. This particular short story, actually it revolves around the protagonist, namely Mrs. Meadows, and her changing moods, and her moods basically gets changed due to certain circumstances of her life. All right, so as we will be going through each and every line, you all will come to know more about the story. I hope you all have kept your books ready. Keep your books ready so that you all can follow each line as I go. Let us start. With despair, cold, sharp despair, buried deep in her heart like a whacked knife, Mrs. Meadows, in cap and gown and carrying a little baton, trod the cold corridors that lead to the music hall. You all can notice that the story starts with a gloomy expression. Okay, it means the so this expression actually that with despair, cold, sharp despair, buried deep in her heart like a white knife. All these sentences, as Mrs. Meadows, she proceeds towards a music hall, and that everything whatever is expressed through first two lines, this is basically reflection of her own mood. It's not only that she was explaining the atmosphere, or rather it was some certain reflections of her mood, that is dejected. And this the reason behind such dejected mood or despondency, that we will come to know later on. It's basically a later though. So let us continue now. Girls of all ages, rosy from the air and bubbling over that gleeful excitement that comes from running to school on a fine autumn morning, hurried, skipped, fluttered by. From the hollow classroom came a quick drumming of voices. A bell rang. A voice like a bird cried, "Mariel." Now, see, this is the atmosphere. The atmosphere outside, as Mrs. Meadows goes on, she finds that all the girls, she is basically a music teacher in a girls' school. So as she continues, as she works on, she finds that the atmosphere is quite, means girls are quite cheerful, they are quite excited, and they are ready to start a new day in their school in a jovial manner. Whereas Mrs. Meadows is not in a mood at all. She is in somber and sullen mood. All right, and then there came from the staircase a tremendous knocking. Someone had dropped her dumbbells. The science mistress stopped Mrs. Meadows. "Good morning," she cried, in her sweet, affected drawl. "Isn't it cold? It might be winter." The science teacher actually wants to talk to Mrs. Meadows. Might be she could understand her mood or something like that, or they had a certain cold war among them, that we will come to know now. Mrs. Meadows, hugging the knife, means she continues with the same sort of mental condition, with the same despondency. She continues, stared in hatred at the science mistress. Everything about her was sweet, pale like honey. You would not have been surprised to see a bee caught in the tangles of that yellow hair. So Mrs. Meadows was did not have a good or healthy relation with the science mistress, science teacher, that we can understand obviously. So she doesn't like her. Okay, so obviously that's why she must not be liking the science teacher, and as the science teacher carries a kind of different characteristics than hers. It's rather sharp, said Mrs. Meadows grimly. The other smiled her sugary smile. You look frozen, said she. Her blue eyes opened wide. There came a mocking light in them. Had she noticed anything? Mrs. Meadows was in a state as the science teacher science teacher told her that she looks frozen. So it somehow threw Mrs. Meadows into certain thoughts that might be she had noticed something. Oh, not quite as bad as that. So Mrs. Meadows, she ignored that. As I told that Mrs. Meadows, she did not have a healthy relationship with the science teacher. Rather, she particularly hates the science mistress for her beauty or charm or cheerfulness, whatever you term. So she obviously she was there to say just the opposite as the science teacher would be saying. So following the same trend, she said that yes, it's not as bad as that. Means she ignores that she looks frozen. And she gave the science mistress, in exchange for her smile, a quick grimace and passed on. Forms 4, 5 and 6 were assembled in the music hall. The noise was deafening. Means the girls were so excited to start their music, to learn, or rather they were eagerly waiting for the music lessons to begin. Stood by the piano stood Mary Weasley, Mrs. Meadows' favorite, who played accompaniments. So there was Mrs. Meadows' favorite student, that is Mary Weasley. She used to play piano. She was turning the music stool. When she saw Miss Meadows, she gave a loud warning, "Shh, girls!" And Mrs. Meadows, her hands thrust in her sleeves and the baton under her arm, strode down the center aisle, mounted the steps, turned sharply, seized the brass music stand and planted it in front of her, and gave 2 sharp taps with her baton for silence. So you all can notice that mechanically Mrs. Meadows was about to conduct the class, since her mood was not it was not good enough. Whereas the girls, all those girls, they were eagerly and excitedly waiting for the music lessons to begin. But Mrs. Meadows was a bit cold. She was not as usual. She was somehow disturbed, and she was not in a good mood at all. Silence, please, immediately. And looking at nobody, her glance swept over that sea of colored flannel blouses with bobbing pink faces and hands, quivering butterfly hair bows, and music books outspread. So instead of looking at the face of those girls, as I told, she started to conduct the class mechanically. She knew perfectly well what they were thinking, and it was not that she was not thinking what her students are thinking about her mood or something like that, but she had such thought, but she did not pay much heed to that. She knew perfectly well what they were thinking. Mary is in a wax, well, let them think it. She considered that the students will be thinking, students are surprised at her behavior, or must be they must be contemplating on various thoughts that were also floating in their minds. But she just, as I told, she just paid no heed to that, And she continued, all right. What could the thought of those creatures matter to someone who stood there bleeding to death, pierced to the heart by such a letter? So here, for the first time, we could understand that we could get a hint that the reason behind her such type of dejected mood. So she considers them to be mere creatures, and it doesn't matter to her whatever they might be thinking, since she considers her heart to be her heart that is bleeding to death, pierced to death, pierced to heart by such a letter from her fiancé. So let's see, here we will find certain lines from the letter. I feel more and more strongly that our marriage would be a mistake. So it's from her fiancé, one letter, and from Basil, and the letter says that her fiancé feels their marriage would be a failure, it will be a mistake. Not that I do not love you. I love you as much as it is possible for me to love any woman, but truth to tell, I have come to the conclusion that I am not a marrying man, and the idea of settling down fills me with nothing but, and the word disgust was scratched out lightly and regret written over the top. So Mrs. Meadows is quite acquainted with the word disgust, and his fiancé, Mr. Basil, tried to somehow scratched it out lightly, but it was there and it touched Mrs. Meadows. Basil, Miss Meadows stalked over to the piano, and Mary Beasley, who was waiting for this moment, bent forward. Her curls fell over her cheeks while she breathed, "Good morning, Mrs. Meadows," and she motioned towards, rather than handed to her mistress, a beautiful yellow chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum is a type of flower. This little ritual of the flower had been gone through for ages and ages, quite a term and a half. So the girl, the student, favorite student of Mrs. Meadows, she used to bring a particular flower, chrysanthemum, for her each day. So this day also she presented the same. It was as much part of the lesson as opening the piano. It was a regular habit of hers. But this morning, instead of taking it up, instead of tucking it into her belt, while she leant over Mary and said, "Thank you, Mary, how very nice," turn to page 32. What was Mary's horror when Mrs. Meadows each day Mrs. Meadows used to take it, she used to thank her, and she used to lovingly ask the children to turn certain page numbers. But instead of that, on that very day, what did Mrs. Meadows do? She just ignored the chrysanthemum and made no reply to her greeting, but said in a voice of ice, in a cold voice, she asked the children, "Page 14, please, and mark the accents well." So she was as I told, she was deeply engrossed in her pensive thoughts, and that particular thing provoked her to behave coldly with her students. Staggering moment, Mary blushed until the tears stood in her eyes, but Mrs. Meadows was gone back to the music stand. Her voice ranged through the music hall. That particular girl, she was about to cry, but she controlled herself. Page 14. We will begin with page 14, a lament. Now, girls, you ought to know it by this time. We shall take it all together, not in parts, all together, and without expression. Saying it, though quite simply, beating time with the left hand. Now Mrs. Meadows, as I told, she was mechanically continuing with her class, and instead of making it in partial, means instead of making those girls singing individually, she asked them to sing in a chorus, and her instructions and everything, it was quite rough, quite stronger than usual. She raised the button, she tapped the music stand twice, Down came Mary on the opening chord, down came all those left hands beating the air, and in chimed those young mournful voices. They sang a song that also somehow was a representation of Mrs. Meadows' mental state. Good heavens, what could be more tragic than that lament? So she could relate with her the song with her mental condition. All right, means it was a certain depiction of the mental state of Mrs. Meadows as well as the negativity of that particular letter. Every note was a sigh, a sob, a groan of awful mournfulness. So each line, each word of that particular song, it represents a sigh, a sob, a groan of mournfulness. So see the entire thing, the doleful setting, the depressing song, and the wretched and disconsolate voices, it clearly reflects Mrs. Meadows' sad state of mind. Okay, her self absorption that is influenced by Basil's letter has caused the singing lesson to be devoid of charm, beauty, or and most importantly, it was devoid of even music. So every note, as I told, as you find in the text, every note is a representation of sigh, sob, and groan of mournfulness. All right. I feel more and more strongly that our marriage would be a mistake. So Mrs. Meadows is her thought is all around revolving around the letter, around all those words. She bet, and the voice cried, "Pleety, ah, Pleety, what could have possessed him to write such a letter? What could have led up to it? It came out of nothing. His last letter had been all about a fumed oak bookcase he had bought for our books, and a natty little hall stand he had seen, a very neat affair with a carved owl on a bracket, holding 3 hat brushes in its claws. How she had smiled at that! So like a man to think one needed 3 hat brushes. From the listening ear sang the voices. Now, as those girls were singing, they were continuing. Mrs. Meadows was in her thought, and she was thinking, she was comparing this particular letter to the last letter of Mr. Basil, and he found that in his last letter he even referred to our books, not his. He referred to our books and mentioned about a natty little hall stand. His letter had then filled her with delight, but this time, this particular letter, it indulges her into negativity. Once again, said Mrs. Meadows, but this time in parts. Now Mrs. Meadows, as I told, the song was also even musicless. So Mrs. Meadows could understand that, and she instructed girls to sing the song again, but this time in parts, and still she continued without expression, fast, too fast, with the gloom of the contraltos added, one could scarcely help shuddering. Fade the roses of pleasure. Last time he had come to see her, Basil had worn a rose in his buttonhole. How handsome he had looked in that bright blue suit, with that dark red rose, and he knew it too. He couldn't help knowing it. First he stroked his hair, then his moustache, his teeth gleamed when he smiled. Mrs. Meadows is not only under the thought that of the later of the previous letter, and moreover she was still indulged into their last meet as well. Okay, so here you all can understand, means though she was into that particular class, she was in the class and she was instructing those girls mechanically, but she was somewhere, and it's quite clearly expressed that the despondency is due to that particular letter from Mr. Basil. So I think we won't be able to complete the text today. We would definitely stop up to this much for today, and rest part will be done in the next class. So I want you, each one of you, to go through each and every line. We have live class next to this, and if you find any sort of doubts, or any place where you can't understand anything, we will definitely be discussing it in the live class. So this much for today. Thank you. Have a nice day.